The Galactic Exploration Fleet moved silently through the stars, its ships like silver shadows gliding between worlds. For months they had searched for a planet with life, a new place for the Council to claim and study. Most worlds they passed were empty, cold, or broken by radiation. But then the sensors caught something. A blue and green sphere shimmered on their displays, circling a yellow star. It looked alive. Captain Lauren leaned forward in his chair, his eyes wide with awe. That can't be right, he whispered. The scanners showed vast oceans, green continents, thick clouds full of water. The readings pulsed with strange energy patterns. Electric storms, seismic movements, volcanic ridges, and atmospheric pressure strong enough to crush most known species. "It's beautiful," said his second officer quietly. "It looks like a dream world." The Admiral, Tessic, turned from the central display. "Mark it. Designation, Terra 3. Prepare a probe." As the ship drifted closer, the planet filled the view. From orbit they could see cities glowing in the night, though the readings confused them. Energy sources fluctuated unpredictably. The planet's electromagnetic field was so powerful it interfered with their instruments. Tessic frowned. "Those signals can't be natural. There's something odd here." The probe was launched. It entered the atmosphere and sent back data. Oxygen-rich air, liquid water, strong gravity, and dense vegetation, all signs of a thriving biosphere. But as it descended through the clouds, the readings began to spike erratically. Radiation levels rose and fell. Temperatures shifted violently between regions. Then the ship's AI flashed a message in bold red letters. "Error code, Class 15 DEATHWORLD, environment unsafe for all known species." The bridge went silent. One of the officers laughed nervously. "That's impossible. There are no Class 15 planets. The scale only goes to 12. "It must be a glitch," another added. "Maybe the system misread something." But the probe continued to transmit. Images appeared, jungles filled with creatures larger than transport ships, mountains taller than clouds, storms rolling with electric fire. They watched lightning tear through entire valleys. They saw oceans that swallowed islands whole. And then in a quiet valley the probe caught something else: movement. Metal glinted in the sunlight. Straight lines, not natural formations. "Artificial structures," said Lauren. "That means intelligence." The Admiral squinted at the feed. The image showed cities, massive ones, spreading across continents, each one pulsing with life. Small dots moved in the streets, gathering, working, building. "Are those life forms?" he asked. "They are," the science officer confirmed, her voice almost trembling. "And they're advanced. Far more advanced than we expected." "Do we have an image?" The probe zoomed closer. A figure appeared, two-legged, upright, wrapped in material for protection. The creature looked directly at the probe as if it knew it was being watched. Its eyes reflected the light, calm and focused. The bridge froze. The Admiral whispered, "They see us." The probe tried to ascend, but something interfered. The video flickered. Static filled the screens. Then a signal came through the noise, a burst of binary, perfectly structured, too deliberate to be an accident. "What is that?" asked the communications officer. "It's a message," she replied. "They're replying to us." Everyone turned toward the main display. The alien message resolved into one simple translation. "We are aware of you. Leave our sky." The Admiral stood slowly. Shut down the transmission. Retrieve the probe. But the probe didn't return. Its signal vanished completely, cut off midstream. Lauren spoke carefully. "Sir, I think we should classify this planet as restricted. If they already know we're here." "Enough," Tessic interrupted sharply. "They can't possibly harm us from the surface. We'll send another probe." A new one launched minutes later, but it didn't even make it past the atmosphere. A flash of light erupted from the surface, and the probe disintegrated. No debris. No trail. Just silence. Tessic stared at the readings in disbelief. That can't be right. How could a pre-space species destroy our probe?" "They're not pre-space," Lauren said quietly. "Look at the data. Orbital debris fields, satellite patterns, these are artificial. They've been here for centuries." The Admiral's mouth tightened. "Then why hasn't the Council recorded them?" "Maybe," Lauren answered, "because no one ever returned to tell the story." The room fell silent again. Outside the viewport, Earth's oceans glimmered beneath drifting clouds, calm and endless. It looked so peaceful, so harmless. The Admiral turned to his crew. "Prepare a landing survey. We need proof before we report to the Council. If they are truly advanced, we'll make contact. If not. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. Everyone understood what "if not" meant. But as the fleet adjusted its orbit, the ship's sensors began to fail. Systems flickered on and off. Navigation screens froze. Then a cold mechanical voice echoed from the console. "Warning, system interference detected. Source unknown." "Is it solar radiation?" the navigator asked. "No," said Lauren, checking his readings. "It's a signal. Coming from the surface. They're scanning us." "Scanning us?" Tessic repeated, his voice rising. "With what?" Before anyone could answer, the ship's engines powered down. The stars outside began to drift as the vessel lost stability. "Restart the core," the admiral shouted. "I can't," the engineer yelled. "They've locked us out of our own systems." Then, through the static of the communications feed came a voice. Not alien, not mechanical, but human. "Come, Cole. You were warned," it said. "This planet is not yours to claim." The lights went out. The fleet regained control hours later, shaken and silent. The admiral ordered them to retreat beyond lunar orbit, his confidence gone. As they pulled away, the stars seemed colder, the void darker. The crew whispered among themselves, about the message, the power, the humans. Some believed it was a trick of the system. Others weren't so sure. Captain Lauren sat alone at his console, staring at the last image the probe had sent before it vanished. A pair of human eyes looking up through the clouds. "Come." Certain. He didn't tell anyone, but he had seen something else in those eyes. Not fear, not confusion, but understanding. A silent promise. And for the first time in his long career of exploration, Captain Lauren felt something he had never felt before in all his travels through the stars. He felt afraid. In the underground military complex beneath London, silence filled the long, steel corridors. The air smelled faintly of oil and ozone, and the hum of servers echoed like a heartbeat. Jonathan Hale stood before a reinforced glass wall, looking at the alien probe resting on a metal table. It was smaller than he expected, smooth, silver, almost beautiful. But it hummed faintly as if still alive. Technicians in white suits moved carefully around it, scanning its surface with magnetic sensors and radiation detectors. Every reading came back strange, frequencies no human technology had ever produced. Emma Clark stepped beside him, her voice steady but low. "It's not transmitting anymore," she said. "Whatever signal it was sending stopped the moment it hit the atmosphere." Jonathan nodded. "That means it wasn't expecting to be found." One of the engineers looked up. "Sir, it's definitely some kind of surveillance unit. Autonomous, high-range scanners, energy signatures off the scale. Whoever built this, they're watching." Emma folded her arms. "Someone's scouting our planet." Jonathan didn't move. His reflection stared back at him in the glass. Tired eyes, gray at the temples, the weight of leadership pressing hard on his shoulders. "Then let's watch back," he said quietly. Orders went out across the globe. The Global Defense Network, once just a patchwork of satellites and surveillance drones, was suddenly alive. Every orbital camera, every tracking system, every radar pulse began to focus on the black space beyond Earth's sky. Humanity had spent centuries studying the heavens. Now the heavens were studying back. Above the planet, the alien fleet drifted silently. Their flagship orbited high above the dark side of Earth, sensors focused downward. They expected to recover their lost probe easily. After all, their technology was supposed to be superior. But when they tried to locate it, their signal returned nothing. "Sir," reported the sensor officer aboard the command ship, "we've lost telemetry from probe 2. It's gone." "Gone?" Admiral Tessic turned sharply. "How can it be gone? Did it crash?" "No, sir. It simply vanished." The beacon stopped responding. "We're tracking static, no reflection, no trace." "Check the backup satellites." "Yes, sir." The officer froze. "Sir, the satellites, they're offline." "What do you mean offline?" The bridge lights dimmed. The holographic display flickered. One by one, icons representing their observation satellites blinked red, then disappeared. Communications died next. Static filled the speakers. The crew looked around in confusion. "Admiral," said the communications chief nervously, "we're losing systems across the board." "From where?" Tessic barked. The officer swallowed. "From Earth." On the surface, the probe in London pulsed once, faintly. A small LED light blinked, then went dark. Emma watched from the observation deck as technicians scrambled to stabilize it. "It's reacting to something," one of them shouted. Jonathan leaned forward. "Can we trace it?" The lead technician nodded. If it's still connected to their network, we can follow the signal back. Do it, Jonathan said. Within minutes, Earth's cybersecurity teams, military AIs, and defense satellites were working together. A single thread of alien code was caught in the data stream. It led them straight to the orbiting fleet. They're still up there, Emma said, staring at the holographic globe. Red lights blinked above the dark side of the Earth. At least 6 ships. Jonathan took a deep breath. Then they'll soon learn what happens when you trespass here. He didn't shout. He didn't give speeches. He just gave orders. In orbit, the alien command ships trembled as their sensors began to fail. Warnings flashed across consoles: navigation loss, power surges, data corruption. They had no idea what was happening. "Sir," cried the chief engineer, "they're inside our systems. Someone's rewriting our codes." "That's impossible," Tessic snapped. "No one can breach a Galnet firewall." But the evidence was right in front of him. Displays turned to static, lights dimmed, and control panels froze. Even the ship's AI voice began to glitch, stuttering like a frightened child. Who are you?" it whispered. Then the entire fleet's communications went dead. From the surface, Emma watched as the alien signals flickered and disappeared one by one. Her voice was calm. "We've taken their eyes." Jonathan stared at the screen showing a silent orbit. Now they'll have to decide whether to stay blind, or to retreat. For hours the alien fleet floated helplessly. Attempts to restart their systems failed. Earth's digital counterattack had been invisible, fast, and merciless. When Admiral Tessic finally regained partial control of his ship, he called for his science officer. "Tell me what happened." The officer looked pale. "Sir, it wasn't a virus. It was contact. They reached us through our own signal. They used our probe as a bridge. Once we tried to recover it, they used the connection to enter our network." "You're saying they hijacked Galnet from a planet that hasn't even achieved faster-than-light travel?" "Yes, sir," she whispered. Tessic sank into his chair. The word impossible felt hollow now. He looked toward the blue sphere below, the death world they had mocked. "End transmission attempts," he said finally. "If we push further, they might shut us down entirely." "Sir," said his aide quietly, "the Council will demand answers." "Then tell them," Tessic muttered, "to pray that humans never decide to look back again." Down on Earth, in the underground lab, the alien probe finally stopped humming. The power inside it drained completely. Jonathan stepped closer, staring at it through the glass. "Do we know what they wanted?" Emma shook her head. "Observation maybe. Or measurement. But they didn't expect resistance." Jonathan gave a small, grim smile. "Then they'll remember us now." He turned to leave the room, his footsteps echoing through the corridor. Behind him, the engineers disconnected the last cables, sealing the alien device inside a containment case. As Jonathan reached the surface, the gray London sky hung heavy above. He looked upward, through the clouds, toward the place where the alien fleet once circled unseen. "They came to watch," he murmured, almost to himself. "Now they'll learn what happens when you stare too long into a death world." Far above, the fleet remained motionless, afraid to move, afraid to strike, afraid to be seen. And for the first time in recorded history, the galaxy realized that Earth was not just another world. It was a warning. The first explosion lit the night sky over the Pacific like a new sunrise. It started as a single streak of light, bright, silent, and fast. Then came the roar, deep and endless, shaking windows across continents. Humanity had begun to fight back. Jonathan Hale stood in the war room beneath London, his face lit by the blue glow of the global display. Around him, screens showed the unfolding battle, clouds of fire in orbit, falling debris over oceans, the blinding streaks of railgun rounds cutting through the darkness of space. "They're trying to retreat," Emma Clark said, leaning over her console. Her tone was calm, but her eyes stayed fixed on the data scrolling across the screen. "But they can't outrun our tracking systems. They're too close." "Missiles away," reported David Mercer from the other side of the room. "All batteries online. Global launch protocols confirmed." On the main screen, red lines arced upward from every corner of the planet: North America, Europe, Asia, the deep-sea silos, even orbital platforms that had been secret until that moment. Humanity had united not in diplomacy but in defense. In orbit, the alien fleet panicked. Admiral Tessic gripped the railing on his command deck as alarms blared. "Activate shields. Redirect power to defense grids." "Shields failing," his lieutenant shouted. "Atmospheric friction from the railgun impacts is overloading the field." "Then move us out of range." "Sir." Before the officer could finish, Another human missile struck. It didn't explode. It pierced. The projectile ripped through the alien ship's hull and detonated deep inside. The flagship bloomed into a sphere of fire, scattering molten fragments into space. Tessik's last order died on his lips. Back on Earth, Jonathan watched the feed turn white with static. One red icon disappeared from the orbital map. Then another. Then 3 more. He didn't smile. He only nodded once and spoke quietly. We told them. Emma folded her arms, her expression unreadable. They thought we were weak. Everyone does, Jonathan said, his voice even. Until they land here. The alien fleet tried to scatter, but Earth's defense grid was relentless. Automated satellites fired railguns with pinpoint accuracy, tearing through ships that tried to hide behind the curvature of the planet. Hypersonic drones launched from high-altitude aircraft, weaving through debris fields to deliver their payloads. And then came the human countermeasure no one in the galaxy could have imagined: orbital lances. Massive electromagnetic cannons hidden inside weather satellites, disguised for decades as simple observation devices, now turned their power toward the invaders. Each lance fired a tungsten rod at incredible speed, striking with the energy of a small nuclear blast but without radiation. From the ground, they appeared as bright flashes streaking upward through the clouds. In space they looked like judgment. Within minutes, the once proud alien armada was a storm of flame and wreckage. Ships broke apart silently, spinning in the void. Escape pods launched, but even those were tracked and intercepted. The humans didn't fight out of vengeance. They fought out of precision, patience, and necessity. In the war room, David called out, remaining enemy forces down to 20% capacity. Most are disabled. Request orders on pursuit. Jonathan took a deep breath. The sound of distant thunder rolled above, missiles cutting through the atmosphere. No pursuit, he said. They came here thinking we were prey. Let them remember what hunted them. Emma turned toward him. You think they'll warn the others? I hope they do, Jonathan said. It's better they fear us than misunderstand us. Outside the night burned. People across the world stood in the streets, watching strange lights dance across the sky. Some prayed, some cheered, others simply stared in awe. News broadcasts called it the Skyfire. In orbit, one of the smaller alien vessels managed to re-establish partial control. Its commander, wounded and desperate, activated the emergency beacon. To any listening outpost, he rasped, voice heavy with static. Do not approach this system. Class 15 DEATHWORLD confirmed. Repeat, abort, abort. The signal cut off as another railgun round tore through the ship. Back in the command center, Emma received the intercepted message. She read it once, then handed the tablet to Jonathan. He glanced at it and gave a faint nod. They finally understand. David looked up from his screen. Should we chase them out completely? Jonathan shook his head. No need. The galaxy will hear the message soon enough. Sometimes silence is louder than any declaration. As the hours passed, the fires in the upper atmosphere faded. The remaining debris fell harmlessly into the oceans or burned up in re-entry. The human fleet, their orbital defenses, air divisions, and ground control, stood ready, but no new signals appeared. By dawn, the battle was over. In the pale morning light, Jonathan walked to the surface for the first time in days. London was quiet. The sky, once streaked with fire, now glowed soft gray. A single contrail stretched across the horizon, fading into the distance. Emma joined him, her coat pulled tight against the cold wind. We did it, she said softly. They're gone. Jonathan didn't answer right away. He watched the horizon, the clouds drifting lazily. They'll be back, he said finally. Not these ones maybe. But someone will come again. They always do. Emma nodded slowly. And when they do? Jonathan looked up, eyes hard and steady. They'll find us waiting. In the command center below, a message flashed across the main screen. A transmission spreading through the interstellar networks, bouncing from one relay to another. It carried only a few words, but they were enough to shake civilizations across the stars. Error code, Class 15 DEATHWORLD, abort. Across the galaxy, fleet commanders stared in disbelief. Explorers canceled expeditions. Colonists erased coordinates from their charts. No one wanted to make the same mistake. And on Earth, Jonathan Hale stood beneath the morning sun, silent and still. Humanity had spoken, not with words, but with the fire of its defense. The world that the galaxy had once called fragile now had a new name, DEATHWORLD. It wasn't just a warning. It was a promise. Days turned into weeks, and what had begun as an ambitious invasion turned into a slow collapse. The alien fleet, once proud and confident, now drifted in panic. Every day another ship went silent. Every transmission came with more desperation. Earth had become a nightmare they couldn't escape. When the first ground battalions tried to land again, they found themselves fighting not soldiers, but the planet itself. The gravity was heavier than any of their training simulations. Their armor felt like lead, and each step burned energy faster than their suits could recharge. The air, rich in oxygen, corroded their metals and irritated their lungs. The microbes in the soil destroyed their food supplies. Even the vegetation fought them. A patrol of alien soldiers marched through what they thought was a harmless green forest. Minutes later, their sensors began to fail. A sweet scent filled the air, a pollen cloud that jammed their respirators. One by one they dropped, choking and coughing as vines twisted around their armor. When the recovery teams arrived hours later, they found only helmets half buried in moss. High above the planet, Admiral Tessick watched helplessly from his command ship. Reports came faster than he could read them: losses, failures, systems dying. His officers argued over maps that no longer mattered. "Admiral, we've lost contact with the landing units in Europe," said one of his lieutenants. "No signals, no life signs." "Then focus on the Pacific units," Tessick ordered. "We can't, sir. Their beacons stopped transmitting an hour ago." The Admiral's grip tightened around the edge of the console. "Oh. They had full support from orbit." "Orbital support failed," the officer replied quietly. "The satellites are gone. The human defense network, whatever it is, it's burning through our systems like fire through paper." The bridge went silent. The only sound was the steady pulse of the warning alarms. "Sir," another voice called out from the communication pit. "The humans have breached our frequency. They're listening to everything." Tessick stared at the holographic display, his mind racing. "Then shut down all transmissions. Encrypt everything." "We tried," the officer said. "They've rewritten the protocols faster than we can change them." For the first time in his career, the Admiral felt fear. He had studied human history, briefly, dismissively. He had seen the records of their wars and assumed they were exaggerated myths. Primitive savagery, he had called it. Yet now, as his fleet fell apart, he realized it was not savagery at all. It was adaptation. It was strategy built on centuries of surviving a hostile world. Every weakness the invaders showed, humans turned into a weapon. In the fields of Asia, soldiers used decoy transmitters to lure dropships into storm clouds that ripped their wings apart. In the oceans, submarines launched silent torpedoes that struck without warning. In the deserts, drones disguised as sandstorms shredded supply convoys. And through it all, the human networks, commanded by Jonathan Hale and his team, moved like clockwork. Every decision was deliberate. Every counterattack exact. Deep underground, in the London command bunker, Jonathan stood before the holographic display of the orbital battle. Around him, technicians reported one alien retreat after another. "Admiral Tessick's forces are falling back toward lunar orbit," Emma Clark said, scrolling through data on her tablet. "They've lost most of their carriers." David Mercer at the communications desk turned his chair. "They're asking for a ceasefire." Jonathan didn't look up. "Do we respond?" Emma shook her head slowly. "No. Let them learn what retreat means." Above Earth, panic took hold of the alien fleet. The Admiral gave desperate orders. "Pull back. All units, retreat to orbit. Prepare for emergency jump." But retreat was no longer possible. The human defense grid had locked onto their ships. Ion storms, artificial ones, flared from the upper atmosphere, blinding sensors. Ground-based lasers and kinetic launchers targeted any ship that tried to ascend. The alien fleet found themselves trapped in the gravity well of a world they had underestimated. The Admiral's voice echoed through the bridge. "Helm, prepare for jump sequence." "Jump drives not responding," shouted the engineer. "The humans are jamming our cores." "Then cut power to non-essentials." "We already did." The Admiral turned toward the viewport, watching as one of his cruisers exploded in silence. A bright plume of fire spread across the void, reflecting in his tired eyes. For a moment he said nothing. Then he whispered, "We never should have come here." On Earth, Jonathan received the intercepted message. He read it once and nodded quietly. "They're pulling out," he said. Emma stepped beside him. "Will they make it?" Jonathan's voice was low. "No." One by one the alien ships tried to flee, but Earth's atmosphere fought them at every step. Some broke apart during ascent. Others lost control and burned in re-entry. A few made it to the edge of orbit, only to be struck by railgun fire from human satellites. The Admiral's flagship, once the pride of the fleet, was now a flickering shadow in the void. With systems failing and engines crippled, Tessic gave his final order. Abandon the mission. All ships retreat. No one moved. The command deck was silent except for the hum of dying power cores. The crew looked at one another with hollow eyes. They all knew it was too late. The last transmission sent by the alien flagship reached the Galactic Council weeks later. It was a single line of corrupted data, repeated over and over through static. Class 15 DEATHWORLD, abort abort. Then it went silent. In the command center below London, Jonathan stood before the dimming screens. The sky above the planet glowed faintly from falling debris. Emma exhaled slowly. It's over. Jonathan shook his head. For them, maybe. He turned toward her. But the galaxy will remember this. And next time they won't come to conquer. They'll come to beg for mercy. David leaned back in his chair, his face pale. Do you think they'll warn the others? Jonathan looked toward the holographic map of the stars. They'll try, he said. But the message will already be clear. Far above, the last alien cruiser lost orbit. It spiraled into the atmosphere, burning like a falling sun. The light stretched across the sky, bright enough to be seen from every continent. People gathered in the streets, watching in silence. Some whispered prayers. Others simply stood in awe. When the fire faded, only the stars remained. Earth had won, not with cruelty but with the quiet certainty of a world that refused to bow. And though the Admiral's fleet would never see home again, his final words echoed across the void, carried by the remains of broken ships. Pull back. Abandon the mission. It's too late. The galaxy listened. And it finally understood. Months passed and the silence of space grew heavy. The once proud alien armada that had set its course for Earth was gone. Only shattered fragments drifted beyond Mars, glinting faintly in the cold sunlight. Debris fields stretched for thousands of miles. Silent graves for ships that had once carried the best warriors of the Galactic Coalition. Across the galaxy, the news spread like a wave of fear. Command stations, research outposts, and council chambers all repeated the same question. What happened to the fleet? No distress signals. No escape pods. No survivors. The most powerful fleet ever assembled had vanished within the gravity well of one small blue planet. In the heart of the Galactic Council chamber, the delegates gathered once more. The room that once echoed with laughter and arrogance was now cold and still. Holographic projections flickered above the central table. Wreckage maps, broken transmissions, garbled sensor readings. Each image carried the same data tag stamped across every file in red. Error code, Class 15 DEATHWORLD, operation terminated. No one understood what it meant. At first, they thought it was a system glitch, a corrupted report caused by the fleet's destruction. But as analysts dug deeper, they realized it was no accident. The error code had been inserted deliberately. By humans. In the quiet of the chamber, the Syrian delegate finally spoke. They destroyed an entire fleet, he whispered. Without leaving their orbit. How is that possible? Across the table, the Thaurian ambassador clenched his claws. Impossible, he hissed. No Class 15 world could support intelligent life. The classification means extinction. It means everything there kills. Exactly, murmured a calm voice from the back. All heads turned as Jonathan Hale stepped into the chamber. Emma Clark and David Mercer followed close behind him, their expressions unreadable. Jonathan walked slowly to the center of the hall, his footsteps echoing in the stillness. He placed a small tablet on the table. It flickered to life, showing live footage of Earth from orbit, its blue oceans, white clouds, and vast green lands. This, Jonathan said softly, is what your fleet called a death world. The delegates stared in silence. You saw a world full of danger, he continued. A place no one should survive. But that's exactly what shaped us. Every storm, every fire, every predator, it all made us what we are. Emma stepped forward, her voice even. You called us reckless, primitive, dangerous. You were right about one of those things. A nervous whisper rippled through the hall. The Vethari delegate raised a trembling hand. Why didn't you respond to our messages? We asked what happened. David Mercer met his gaze. You didn't ask. You demanded. There's a difference. The Vethari fell silent. Jonathan's tone remained calm, almost gentle. The fleet came here thinking they could conquer. They thought humanity would kneel. Instead, they learned what your scientists already knew. Earth doesn't forgive weakness. It never has. He paused, letting the words sink in. The message you received, error code, Class 15 DEATHWORLD, that wasn't an error. That was a warning. The chamber felt smaller now. The air seemed to grow heavier as every delegate realized the truth. The galaxy thought it understood strength, Jonathan continued. But strength isn't about power or numbers. It's about survival. It's about standing back up after everything tries to kill you. Emma folded her arms. We've done that since the beginning of our history. We fought the planet, each other, and time itself. What made you think we couldn't handle you? A long, suffocating silence followed. For the first time in its history, the Galactic Council had no answer. The Dravari representative finally spoke, his voice trembling. So the fleet is gone? All of them? Jonathan nodded once. Every ship that came to Earth paid the same price. No survivors. No remains worth saving. David leaned against the table, his voice steady. They were warned. We didn't start this. The Syrian delegate swallowed hard. And if another fleet comes? Jonathan's eyes were calm but unyielding. Then the code will appear again. He turned off the tablet. The image of Earth faded, leaving only darkness. When the humans walked out, no one tried to stop them. In the hours that followed, the chamber erupted into chaos. Some shouted to send diplomats to Earth, to beg for peace. Others demanded to classify the planet as forbidden territory. A few wanted to erase all records of humanity entirely. But one truth hung in the air like smoke. Humanity had won, and they had done it without leaving their world. Far from the Council, near the asteroid colonies of Jupiter, a lone satellite transmitted fragments of the last alien transmission. Static and broken voices whispered through the void. Engines failing, gravity field collapsing, lifeforms, too fast, too. Then silence. The signal ended with the same text burned into the screen. Error code, Class 15 DEATHWORLD, operation terminated. Across the stars, that code became legend. Pilots whispered it before entering unknown systems. Soldiers carved it onto their armor. Captains refused to plot courses near the Sol system. Every civilization knew its meaning even if they pretended not to speak of it. It was the universe's final warning. Earth was not a world to conquer. It was a world to survive. And those who tried to test it never returned. Years later, children of distant worlds would ask their parents about the story. Did humans really destroy the fleet? They would say. The elders would always answer the same way, softly, carefully, and with fear in their eyes. No one knows what they did, they'd whisper. All we know is that nothing came back. And that the message was clear. In the silence of space, the fragments of alien ships still drifted beyond Mars, mute reminders of the galaxy's greatest mistake. Jonathan Hale once stood on the balcony of Earth's orbital station, looking out at those remains. Emma and David joined him, watching as the sunlight caught on the twisted metal. David broke the silence first. Do you think they'll try again? Jonathan didn't answer right away. He just smiled faintly. No, he said at last. Not after this. The galaxy has learned. Emma turned toward him. And what exactly did they learn? Jonathan's voice was quiet, but it carried the weight of a planet behind it. They learned that you don't invade a death world, he said. You survive it, if you're lucky. Far away, deep in a forgotten data vault on a distant world, one report still glowed faintly on a flickering monitor. Error code, Class 15 DEATHWORLD, operation terminated. Beneath it, in small human text, a single phrase had been added later, perhaps by someone who wanted the message to be understood clearly by anyone who found it. Do not approach. Do not provoke. Do not return. And across the galaxy no one ever did,